One is that know the problem it's trying to solve. A lot of people come up with the greatest idea, but great ideas are usually to solve a problem. If that problem is not big enough, or if that problem is something that people don't want solved, the product or the innovation is not actually that useful. It won't become so successful. And the way to do this is to speak to a lot of people, to the physiotherapists, other physiotherapists, speak to patients, speak to all the stakeholders involved to understand the problem. The second tip is do not be afraid to speak to people you trust. When I first started, I thought I had the best idea. I can't tell anyone because they're going to steal it. That is probably the worst thing that I could do, because if I didn't speak to people, I don't think I would have created this product. I spoke to a number of people to understand about the problem, and at the end I partnered with a computer scientist that is great to work with, that I trust, and we have developed this product. The final tip I have is to know your numbers. Knowing numbers mean that, well, it's going to cost about $300,000. You're planning to sell it for $2 to 5 people a year. That product probably won't be successful, and the judges will be able to see that because they're there to help you to make sure that the product is going to be successful both in an innovative term and also financially.
Probably my top 2 tips would be that you don't do it alone. Find yourself a co-founder, particularly if you're a physiotherapist and you're in the healthcare. Find yourself someone who's got the technical expertise. Don't just do it with a friend. Find someone who understands the tech side of it. So find yourself someone with software engineer background, someone with opposing views, different worldly knowledge as well, so you don't have the same biases. Secondly, I would advise someone to really validate what they want to do. So understand, what's your product? What are you trying to do? Are you really solving a problem that matters? So you really find who your customer is, who's going to be paying for it, and ask them some questions about what's their biggest problem, what keeps them up at night, what would a solution look like for them, and trying to figure out exactly if what your solution is, what you're trying to do, really solving a problem for them.
Number 1 would be, do you really want to do this? First of all, we know that about 90% to 95% of companies won't exist 3 years later. So chances are you're going to fail. And if you have to be going with open eyes, and I shared in my talk earlier today that I think startups are glorified or can be glorified. Number 2 tip is, assuming that you have decided that you really want to do this, is speak to customers. What I mean by that is try to reduce that iteration feedback loop to as short as amount of time as possible, so that you can get a product in market, even if it's not a very nice polished version. Don't wait too long. You should be embarrassed by the first version you release, and then try and get feedback quickly to solve that person's problem, particularly if they're the customer. So the third tip is try to understand that funding environment. Matters slightly less if you're not a commercial business or not for profit or a social enterprise, but even then you've got to keep the lights on. But understanding who pays and what their motivation for paying is something that I think is super, super important. And at the end of the day, that's probably going to be your lifeline or not.